Thank you, Mr. Chair and Ranking Member Risch. Secretary Blinken, thank you for the time that you've spent with us today. It's an important hearing, and there will be many more. I'm going to a second one in the Armed Services Committee in about 2 hours, and I expect over the course of the next weeks there will be many. And I'm just going to really speak from the heart to kind of set out what I'm thinking at a very important moment, a complicated moment. I'm the father of a Marine. I come from a state that is very, very heavily affected by the wars of the last 20 years. It was one of the states that was attacked on 9/11. And in the weeks of August and early September, this is basically what I've done. I've watched Afghanistan on television. I've talked to active duty and veterans. I've talked to you and other colleagues. I have visited the Pentagon for the Pentagon employees' commemoration of the 9/11 attack. I went to Arlington on 9/11 to go to the fire station where the relief effort was spearheaded. I've also gone to Fort Lee as you have, to see the incredible work that's being done to help Afghans who've stood with us integrate into American life. I've been to the Dulles Expo Center to see these families that have traveled halfway around the world, still traumatized, but looking forward to a chapter where they can be free. And I have a lot of emotions. And so let me just tell you what they are. They're sadness, and their anger, and their pride, and their relief. Sadness. I'm saddened by the unnecessary deaths of the 3,000 or so who were killed on 9/11. I'm saddened by the deaths of more than 7,000 U.S. troops. I'm saddened by the deaths of more than 8,000 American contractors. I doubt there's been a war in the history of the United States where more contractors died than troops, but this global war on terror is one such war. I'm saddened at the deaths of 400,000 innocent civilians in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. I'm saddened at those who are now going to have to live under Taliban rule. I'm particularly saddened for the families of the 13 troops who were killed. To lose a child in any circumstance is horrible, and war is horrible, but in the last days of a war, that has been declared over and is winding down, I don't know how that wound could ever heal for a parent. And yet those 13 died to save the lives of about 120,000 people who will have the chance to live in a freer and better society because of their heroism. I'm angry. I'm angry at the terrorist impulse. I was angry about it on 9/11/01, the urge to destroy, with the planes flying into buildings and killing people indiscriminately, young, old, American, other nationalities, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, no religion. That indiscriminate urge to destroy, to blow up a demolition vest at the Kabul airport and kill 13 American troops and hundreds of your own country men and women, for what? That angers me. I'm angered that after 20 years of American investment in an Afghan security force dramatically larger than the Taliban, dramatically better equipped than the Taliban, that security force just melted away and failed. And the one thing I would be a little bit critical of you and the administration is the same point that Senator Romney was making earlier, and Senator Rubio. The notion that General Milley said that nothing I or anyone else saw indicated a collapse of this army and this government in 11 days, I just don't think that's true. I know it wasn't the consensus opinion, and I know it wasn't the most likely possibility, but the possibility of a collapse was not 0%, and it wasn't 1%, and it probably wasn't 10%. It was probably, based on what we've been hearing in this committee, and others have too, that was always it was a possibility that had to be grappled with. And I guess one of the questions that I'll get into over coming weeks is, if the administration really said nobody could see this coming, then that probably suggests that the contingency planning for something that was a real possibility wasn't all that it should have been. My anger at the collapse of the security force, we've got to get into it, and we have to decide, did we train them wrong? Did our equipping them lead to corruption? Were they good fighters that lacked confidence in their own military and civilian leadership? Did we want things for Afghans that the Afghan leadership didn't want for themselves? We had good intentions about what we might have wanted in Afghanistan, but let's face it, we can't get 30% of Americans to get a vaccine. We can't get 30% of Americans to acknowledge the results of a presidential election. Do we really think that we can determine what the culture of another country should be. I'm proud. I'm proud of those who served in so many different ways, from first responders who ran into the buildings on 9/11 to this generation of Americans, many of whom didn't come from military families necessarily, but who volunteered to serve. And not just serve once or twice, but this is the only generation, I believe, of the American military that has seen 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 deployments again and again and again. Injured, wounded, carrying some invisible scars that will affect the rest of their life. I'm proud of their service. I'm proud of the country and my Virginians for what they're doing in welcoming Afghans here. The outreach from Virginians to my office, from our Vietnamese community, we want to help Afghans settle. From churches, where do we donate? How do we give to resettlement agencies? When I visited Fort Lee and Dulles, to hear the Afghans express their appreciation to the United States, and even in the midst of their trauma and their anxiety about the next chapter, to be excited about the opportunity to live in a place not under Taliban rule and have an opportunity for better lives of their children. I'm proud that even amidst all of the challenge, that's the way they look at us. And I'm proud of the military who are there who say, I've been deployed 5 times. This mission is the most important mission I'll ever undertake. But the last thing, and Mr. Chair, if you might indulge me, because I may go another 30 seconds past, I'm relieved. No one has said this yet. I'm relieved that a child born at Inova Fairfax today is not born into a nation at war. Some will challenge my characterization because the world's a dangerous place. And American troops are deployed all over the world. And there's risks and there's threats. But we have been a nation at permanent war for 20 years. We were never supposed to be that nation. Never. Never. We were never supposed to be that nation. I heard a college student at George Washington say recently, I know nothing of war, because with an all-volunteer army, she doesn't have to. But all I know is war. All I know is war. President Biden had the courage to say, this nation is not a nation that should be permanently at war. It's going to take a while for people to wrap their head around the notion that though there are serious threats for us everywhere, we're not a nation now that is at war, ground wars in the Middle East. It's going to take people a while to get used to it. Some people will resist it. Some people will want to say, no, we've got to be on the front edge of our feet and be on permanent war footing at all moments for now into infinity. But I am relieved. I am relieved that for the first time in 20 years, children being born in this country today are not being born into a nation at war. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.